Yeah. By the way, tonight is the night
What day for what?
that LeBron James proves once and for all he is greater than Michael Jordan. It's going to happen tonight
It wasn't
at
a night,
Staples.
Skip. That happened like 4 years ago, nights ago.
Really? 4 years ago. I can't wait for
How you
tonight.
doing, Malibu Barbie?
Yeah.
Look
I'm
at
good.
How you doing, Skip, today? How you doing, Skip? I
Thank
just want to know
Better
how you
names
doing.
for me.
I'm doing way better than LeBron James.
Oh, my gosh.
You know what?
We are going to talk about it. You set yourself up for that. Will the king pass the GOAT tonight? We might be seeing that. And is it time
Like
to
a real
worry
goat,
about the Warriors? Hey, are we talking about them? But we're going to start with Kyler Murray. He could be the #1 overall pick next month, but he apparently didn't leave a good first impression with a lot of teams at the Combine. Former NFL GM Charlie Casserly, who now works for NFL Network, said the comments he heard about Kyler were the worst he's ever heard about a highly rated quarterback. The Heisman Trophy winner reportedly didn't do well in interviews that emphasized leadership, study habits, and board work. That was the only interaction teams had with Kyler since he chose not to work out. So, Shannon, what do you make of this?
I'm disappointed. Skip, I know Charlie. I worked with Charlie on the previous show that I was on for a decade.
Yep.
I think the last 8 years, I worked with Charlie Casserly. He responsible. He's a general manager of the Washington. I think they won a Super Bowl, and he helped put the Houston Texans together in the early stages. I do not believe that Charlie just made this up. I believe he got this from somewhere. But what happens, and I don't think Charlie is thinking like, man, if I say this, this is going to be perceived this way. I don't think he thought. I think he got that information from a couple of teams, and he went with it. But what it does, Skip, is that it goes back to the antiquated, the stereotypical about the black quarterback. When he says the board work, what does that come with? Not smart enough. Because for the longest time, you know, blacks, they can't think fast enough. They can't think on their feet. They can't think under stress or duress. And it's just, we heard this about Cam. We heard this about Vince Young. We heard this about Jameis. Last year, Bill Polian said Lamar Jackson should switch positions to play slot receiver. Come on, man. It's hard for me to believe, Skip, after 15 minutes, you can determine all of that. Granted, was he in the most complicated offense? Because it seems to me in these systems, Skip, they call a play and they run it.
Yep.
Now, but what upsets me is that we seem to never, and I get it, that's Kyler Murray, potential #1 overall draft pick. If they say this about Haskins or they say this about Daniel Jones or the guy from Missouri, I don't know if it generates the buzz that Kyler Murray will generate. But what it does, Skip, now, I'm like, really? Because I'm like, really? It just feels to me that maybe someone put this out, hope it damages Kyler, he slides down. But it only matters what Arizona thinks. And when he went in there to that interview, how do they feel about him? Because that's all that matters. Skip, let me tell you an interesting story. I remember Dion was telling me the story, and I think it was, he came out in '89, a year before I did. And he goes into an interview, I think it was the Giants. They're picking 18th, but he doesn't know that at the time. So he sits down, they start to ask him a question. He's like, hold on, wait a minute. Where y'all drafted? They're like, 18th. He gets a walker. I ain't gonna be there when y'all draft. Maybe it's a situation where you guys are drafted. I'm not gonna be there. Maybe I saw the Dan Patrick interview, Skip. It didn't come off like he was very rehearsed. Like he hadn't made a decision, and Dan Patrick was asking him questions as if trying to get information, as opposed to just saying, you know, we haven't made a decision. When we make that decision, we feel comfortable with whatever decision we make. It was like Dan was like pulling teeth, like, well, if you play for if you get drafted by the Raiders, well, I hadn't made, what about your pro day? Are you going to the combine? Things that would have divulged what he was going to do. Skip, every quarter, they make it seem like if you're not Peyton Manning on the board, you're not Peyton Manning with leadership, you can't be a good quarterback. That's, in personality, Skip, if Peyton Manning had not done Saturday Night Live, if Peyton Manning had not done interviews, I'm not so not interviews, commercials. I'm not so sure people outside of Indy would have known he possessed the type of personality that he had. Because when you look at Peyton Manning, all you see is Omaha, him running up and down the line of scrimmage, pointing at guys, pointing at that and doing all that. You wouldn't think he has that type of personality. But to do this to this young man, you know how this is going to come across, Skip. You know what it's going to do. People are like, here we go again. Really? So no other, and this never happens. We don't hear about white quarterbacks not being able to do good at the
sometimes I have, but go ahead. Mostly it's the black
quarterback.
Yep.
We don't hear leadership. It's hard for me to believe, Skip. This guy is a terrible leader.
Yep.
Given what he was able to accomplish. Granted, he was only there for a little while, but I'm trying to figure out how can you deduce all this, Skip, in a 15-minute interview?
So, I have 99 problems with what Charlie Casserly said. In fact, I have 199 problems with what he said. And you worked with him. I knew him more from a distance as the GM of the Redskins. And by the way, he was there for 11 years and they won 1 Super Bowl. So it wasn't like he created the Redskins dynasty of the 80s. He came at the tail end of it.
Yeah, Bobby Beathard had actually put it together.
That was Bobby Beathard who went into your Hall of Fame. Was it last summer?
Maybe last year. Maybe it was last year.
I believe it was. Charlie Casserly then went on to the Houston Texans and they were fledgling, and he tried to build a foundation, and they went 18-46 over his 4 years with the Texans, and then he was removed from that job. So he's been doing this since 2005 for various outlets. And my first problem was that I listened to the clip on NFL Network, and he just blurts out that he heard this. But it's like damning with faint praise, except he's damning with faint details because there's no details provided. Did he hear this from one GM or 5 or 10?
Right.
If you would background it, if we reinforce it, give me detail, then I'd say, oh, wow, you talked to 10?
Did he say more than 2?
I didn't get any of it. I didn't get any context whatsoever here.
Interesting.
So now, the first thing you have to ask, has Charlie taken the time to watch the tape? Because the tape does not lie on this kid. And again, I didn't watch the tape, but I watched every single snap he took at the University of Oklahoma, and all I saw was clutch playmaker. All I saw was NFL-bound star. So let's start with that. Now, the next problem is, to your point about 15-minute interviews. How can you ascertain, how can you discern leadership in 15 minutes? Wouldn't you have to go interview his coaches or his teammates or people around him? I don't know, people who lived around. I don't know. How do you get leadership out of a 15-minute interview? I have no idea. How do you get study habits out of 15 minutes? I don't know. Help me out. How do you know a kid's study habits out of just asking him about his study habits? Is he going to say, I don't study? Is that what he's going to tell you?
Probably
I don't know.
Not.
They do put you up on used to be the chalkboard, now it's the whiteboard, okay?
Right.
So if you want to deduce from that he has no idea what he's doing, okay, God bless. But again, now we're back into the stereotype.
On the surface.
Yeah.
Now they got electronic equipment. They put you on the iPad.
Whatever they put you on. Yeah,
yes.
I got you. I got you. But Jenny will attest to this, and I'm going to get Jenny's thoughts on this in just a moment. Kyler Murray is the flip side of Baker Mayfield in personality. He is not outgoing. He is not particularly warm. He is not charming. He's not going to give you his insight. It's in there, but he's not going to share with you his deepest thoughts. Baker will share like crazy. They both have giant chips on their shoulders, but the chip manifests itself very differently in both undersized quarterbacks. Baker wears his chip on his sleeve. He's going to point at you, he's going to call you out, and then he's going to do it to you. Kyler's just going to do it to you.
Right.
He's not going to be demonstrative about it. He's not going to celebrate his touchdowns at all. He's not going to do helicopters over the field or planes or whatever Baker does to celebrate, right? He just goes to the sidelines. He is all business on the football field. Now we get to the underlying MO at the combine. Remember, obviously, Kyler shares an agent with Cliff Kingsbury. So there is open line of communication right to a key decision. He's not the head decision maker, but a key decision maker as the new head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Don't you think they have pretty good intel on what the Cardinals are thinking? So how many teams wanted to interview Kyler Murray below number 1, below Arizona? I have no idea. How deep would he go down in interviews? Well, if I know Kyler, he can be a little difficult if he decides this is wasting his time. A lot of these, if he did, I don't know how many others he did because nobody reported this. Did he do 5 other interviews?
I would assume at least that many.
Okay,
at
more?
the bare minimum that
okay,
many.
maybe more. Did he go into the non-Arizona interviews thinking, this is a waste of my time, and I'm going to give them nothing? Do you know what happens? Do you know how it becomes spy versus spy at the Combine, where a lot of teams say, there's no way I'm going to draft Kyler Murray, but it's highly possible I'm going to have to compete against him, so I want to interview him so I can pick his brain to see what makes him tick, so that we can compete. How can we game plan against this? Oh, he doesn't like this. He doesn't enjoy this play. He likes this formation, but he doesn't like this formation, whatever it is.
Or I'll say something bad, Skip, and maybe he slides to me.
Okay, maybe you could do it that way. But there's a lot of gamesmanship going on. There's lots of smoke and there's lots of mirrors going on. There's a lot of game playing going on in these interviews because everybody sort of knows what's about to happen. But let's try to make this happen by doing that, or not saying this or doing that. But again, did Kyler come off as a little bit of a jerk in the Dan Patrick? Yes, he did, because he didn't want to be there. And
why did he agree to it?
I think he was selling something.
He was
He was selling a product.
Exactly.
Okay, I got it.
That's on him.
Okay,
yes,
can he be a little bit of a jerk when he decides this is not what he wants to do? Yes, he can be that.
Skip, why go there if you don't want to be there?